Hi, and welcome everyone. A new video by Afterburner's Flight Sim channel, and this video is for those who are using prepared version 4. When I opened this YouTube channel 4 years ago, I made a video about how to improve the cloud performance in prepared version 3. I'm sure that many of you who use the add-on ActiveSky and ActiveSky Cloud Art have experienced a scenario where flying over heavy overcast conditions during sunset or sunrise affected your frame rate so much that it simply tanked. And in that video, I documented what you can do to mitigate the drop in frame rate. And I wanted to let you know that I've recently purchased prepared version 4. I know that version 5 is already out there. It has received an update recently, and I have tried that version. And in my opinion, the new feature, which is called Enhanced Atmosphere, does not satisfy my expectations yet. So it has certainly positive aspects, but in my opinion, it has some bugs. And if you turn off Enhanced Atmosphere, it has more bugs than prepared version 3 or version 4 in the normal state. I'm sure it will be improved in the future, but I've decided to go with version 4 because apparently that's a stable version, and as you know, I like to fly Concorde, evident by my avatar, and Flight Sim Labs have announced that they will make a new Concorde for prepared version 5 and version 4. So I thought, since it will be compatible with version 4, it would be a good idea to buy this simulator. Now, the problem that I have described in that video is also present in version 4. You're welcome to watch that video, by the way, if you like, but I will briefly let you know what I concluded. So if you find yourself in a situation like shown on this thumbnail, where you have a nice sunset and a heavy cloud coverage, your frame rate will be badly affected. And one way to reduce that problem is to go to your configuration folder where you have your prepared configuration file and alter wait, let me actually go to, so you could either go there, or you can access your documents folder. If you have installed your prepared version 3, then you have add-ons and files for version 3 and also for version 4. So if you go to the files version, let me first show where you can do that with version 3. Now, if you make some changes in graphics in the menu, you have the option to save the profile, and then you can access that profile like here. I have saved the profile which is called IFR High, and if you open it with the notepad, there is an entry called Cloud Shadow Texture Size. In the video, I've documented that if you reduce that value, the performance will be much better under overcast conditions during sunset. So if you change it to 256, it will be substantially better. If you keep reducing it, the performance will go up more, but the shadows will become jaggy, and therefore 256 I would consider a good trade-off between quality and performance. Now, with version 4, there is a profile which I've named IFR High and IFR Medium. Let me open that profile. And if you are looking for the same entry, Cloud Shadow Texture Size, you won't find it. In version 4, it's called differently. It's called translucent shadow texture size. Even though the name is different, but it refers to the same thing. If you change this value, it will change the cloud shadow texture size. Now, there is some bad news and some very good news here. The good news actually will definitely outweigh the bad news, in my opinion, so just keep watching. Now, the bad news is that in version 3 of Prepared, if you made changes to this value in your graphics profile and you saved that change, Prepared then took the value that you have entered in your profile configuration file. Okay, with version 4, I found out that if you make changes here, so for example, let's say you change the texture size to 256 and then you save it and you load prepared version 4 and you select this profile, the texture size of 256 will not be applied. So that's the bad news. For some reason, Lockheed Martin maybe did not stumble upon this problem. It may be a bug or it may be intentional, I don't know. So that's the bad news. Now, you can still change the shadow texture size in the main configuration file. You know, the one where you can find, if you go to C, users, your username, app data, roaming, Lockheed Martin, and prepared version 4. You just have to make sure that you activate the hidden items checkbox so that you can find it. But those of you who have been flying with Prepared a lot, you know all of this. And if you open the configuration file from here and you make changes to the texture size, Prepared will apply the changes that you have made in the main configuration file. So it doesn't mean that it's not possible to change the texture size. I'm just saying that you cannot change the profile configuration file and then have Prepared or select that profile in Prepared. You have to do it here directly. Okay, so let's revisit the problem and the solution, which is going to be similar to what I documented 4 years ago with version 3, but this one will be even better. So let me open the simulator and then we will continue. This is my desktop, and you can see the add-ons that I use with Prepared version 4. So I'm going to open the simulator. I recommend to always open it as administrator. That's important if you plan to make some changes to the scenery library. If you don't open the sim as administrator and you make some changes to your library, Windows 10 will not let you do that because you don't have administrative privileges. So now I will open up a saved scenario with big fat clouds that will tank the frame rate. I will first open the scenario without active sky and then I will turn on active sky while the simulator will be running. So let's click on load. And this one, this is going to be close to the airport of St. Petersburg in Russia. Okay, let me create clear sky conditions to check what the performance is going to be without clouds. And I will be using the slew mode because that way I don't have to fly the airplane. it doesn't matter because the impact on the performance you will experience one way or another, either in slew mode or in regular flying mode. Okay, here we are. If you are interested in the coordinates, let me quickly show them to you. So if you want to get to the same place, you see that's the airport of St. Petersburg. Just enter these coordinates in the map. And we have sunset conditions, as you can see. By the way, I use env and env because in my opinion this combination produces the most realistic sunsets. You see, I find it's very natural and not some phony and comical combination of colors that you may see with other add-ons. Okay, so this is our frame rate, which looks very good. I mean, it's no surprise since we don't have any clouds. And the GPU load is 80%. By the way, let me show to you what video card I'm using. It's a GeForce GTX 1660 Super. I think it's not a bad video card with 6 gigs of VRAM. I know it's not the best out there, but I think it's sufficient for the simulator. And my CPU is an AMD Ryzen 3600X. Okay, so things look good here. Now let me add an Overcast cloud condition just for fun. First, let me use the inbuilt weather configurator in prepared. Let's go to advanced weather and have a cumulus cloud cover going from 6,000 to 10,000 feet, overcast. Okay, so obviously the frame rate has taken a hit, but it's still in the green zone, as I would say, so it's a little above 50. Let me, by the way, show you my graphics settings. So I'm not gonna comment too much. You can see it for yourself. As far as lighting, okay, I have to admit that the shadow quality is reduced. Okay, so let me set it to medium. It's gonna affect the frame rate even more, but not so much. Anyway, now let's open Active Sky for prepared version 4. And if you open it, it automatically opens Active Sky Cloud Art. Let me quickly show you the settings in Cloud Art. So my settings are pretty high with 32-bit cloud textures and a resolution of 2048 times 2048 and a high quality overcast model. And let me minimize it. So this is Active Sky for version 4. And here are the conditions. My cloud settings and visibility settings, 200 nautical miles upper, no, not nautical miles, it's statute miles of upper visibility, and the cloud draw distance, the maximum one I have set to 150, and the current one is 130, so relatively high. Okay, let's go back and well, that's what I was talking about. So Active Sky, when it uses high density cloud cover or multiple cloud covers, you see that the frame rate takes even more of a hit. So you remember when I opened the simulator, the frame rate was in the 90s, 80s, and now it's just 19, and it doesn't make it all the way to 20. Well, yes, the Overcast cloud soup looks tasty, that's for sure, but the frame rate is everything else except tasty. I think that you would agree. Now, and it's not attributed to the presence of dynamic lights in the forums. In some forums, I've seen people telling that you simply need to deactivate dynamic lights. I can tell you it's not because of the dynamic lights, so the lights are not to blame. You can, if you want to make any changes here in the graphic settings, you could reduce the shadow quality and the draw distance. So let's reduce the draw distance to low. Okay, yes, the performance is better, but it's still not really satisfactory. And the evidence that it's all due to cloud shadows, let me give you that evidence. Even if you put the shadow quality all the way up to high and the shadow draw distance, and you deactivate clouds, you see now the frame rate is 53, 54. So from 18, or actually less than 18 if you leave the shadow quality settings at maximum, now we are over 50 and with no apparent changes in graphics. Would you agree? I mean, since you are flying above an overcast cloud layer, you do not see any changes in graphics on the ground anyway, because you cannot see the ground if you fly above overcast conditions. So you could certainly turn off the shadows if you experience that shit, and I have to say that the hit that you see here is a little extreme. In most situations the hit will not be nearly as severe. So it's just here, and it's also during a sunset or sunrise. Let me show you what happens if you activate the cloud shadows and you change the time. So now with shadow quality settings set to maximum, the frame rate is 10 frames per second, and this is simply not acceptable. And if you use the coolie head to move around your head in the cockpit, it lags and stutters like crazy. Okay, so under WX control, I will turn off force historical time to sim time because I want the weather to stay the way it is, but I want to change the daytime to day. So I don't want any changes in weather. And it's obvious that the GPU load during the scenario was at 100% and the temperature reached 72 degrees Celsius. So definitely maximum GPU load. Well, now it's still at 100%, but you see the frame rate is 40. So we have a 4 times as high of frame rate than we had during sunset. And if you reduce the shadow quality from ultra to high, it's gonna be even more. So this begs the question: what can we do about it? Yes, you can reduce the cloud shadow texture size, and again, it's no longer called cloud shadow texture size, it's called the translucent shadow texture size. Let's go and check the configuration file. So here it is, and the default value is 512. Now, let me briefly minimize the simulator, and before I make any changes, let me back up that file. I recommend that you also do it, and let's paste it to the desktop. Just in case something goes wrong, we can always recover the backed up file. Okay, so you could change the texture size of the the texture size of the shadow, and it will improve the performance. But as I said, if you fly during conditions that are not overcast, so if you only have a few clouds, the shadows will become jaggy if you use a value that's too low. So I repeat, you can of course turn off the cloud shadows. That will that will give you a huge boost in performance. But what if you fly beneath the cloud layer? So what if you want to have the cloud shadows because you fly beneath the cloud layer, but at the same time you also want to increase your frame rate? Let me show you a nice trick. So I'm setting the time back to 4:40 to have the sunset that you've seen. So once again, what if you encounter a situation like this and you want to reduce the size of the shadow textures and you do not want to make any other changes? So you want to preserve the shadows but just reduce their size. And now watch carefully. Just access your main configuration file of prepared and change the value while you are on the fly. You can press the pause button if you want to and just change the value to 256, for example, and then save the file. And it will let you save. It will not complain that the file is being used by another program like it does with some other files. Minimize it. So you don't see any changes in frame rate yet. And here's the trick. Just access your graphic settings and click OK. Don't make any changes. And voila, you now have an upward jump in frame rate without any deterioration of visual quality above the cloud layer. So 32 is much better than 15. And if you want to go further, if you want to increase your frame rate by more and you want to reduce the size of the shadow textures, you can try 128. And again, you will not see a deterioration of the visual quality above the clouds. Just save it, go to graphic settings and click OK. And you see now it's 45, 46, 47. So almost the same frame rate as having no cloud shadows at all. The fact that this method works, let me prove again. If you now enter 512, the default value, save or just hit Ctrl and S, go to graphics, OK, and now it's back to to some pathetic 15 frames per second. So this is above the cloud layer where you will not see any changes. Should you go into sync mode, and when you will pass the base of the cloud layer, let's do that quickly. Let me open the map and enter 2000 as the altitude, 2000 feet. So let's quickly check the GPU. Yes, so the GPU has been at 100% load, because this feature is very GPU intensive. And you see, during sunsets or when there's a sunrise. Okay, so here we are beneath the cloud layer. As you can see, the frame rate is a little better, but not really good. So let me first turn off the cloud shadows, and well, it looks much better. 50 frames per second, even 55, but you don't have the shadows anymore. I mean, the visual impact on the ground is really small, don't you think? So maybe here we can see the impact. Here we have no shadows. It's definitely brighter. So the illumination of the buildings behaves in a way as if we would not have any clouds and cloud shadows. If you turn on the cloud shadows, it's definitely darker and more realistic. There are no more light reflections, but the frame rate, as you can see, tanks. And even more if you, so for some reason, if you look into the sun, then the frame rate is going to be even lower. So just use this trick, lower the texture size, save, go to graphics and click OK. And now you have a much higher frame rate, and you still have the shadows, the cloud shadows. You see, the ground is still as dark as it should be when you would have this cloud layer in reality. And if that's not enough, again, you can go even lower to 128. And now we have a frame rate above 50. So, and now when you have overcast clouds, the low resolution of the shadows will not manifest in low visual quality. If you have clouds, a cloud coverage of 2/8 or 3/8, or you have some individual clouds, then yes, then the shadow quality is not good. But if you have an overcast cloud condition, then you see there is no difference in the quality of shadows. So let me, because I'm curious, let me turn off the cloud shadows. So you see, having the cloud shadows turned off, the frame rate is almost the same as with a cloud shadow size of 128. Now, let me address the aspect of the quality of the shadows. For that, I'm gonna turn off the active sky. add-on, because then we can get clear weather. And let me change the time to noon. And I will also add some small clouds. Okay. Weather. And let's add some scattered cumulus clouds. Well, let's have 4/8. Okay, I forgot to turn on the cloud shadows. Okay, now let's go to external view. And you see, when I pan, there are artifacts on the edges of the cloud shadows, so it doesn't look really good. Let me see if I keep panning. Oh yes, you can see that quite well here. So if you make small changes, there are obvious artifacts. And well, now you can restore the texture size back to 512, and you will see that the shadow quality will be better and there will be no impact on frame rate, because if the cloud coverage is low and if it's daytime, then there is no discernible impact on the frame rate. So in my opinion, this is very convenient. You don't have to restart the sim. That's the best thing. You can just do it on the go, change the value directly in your configuration file, and then access the graphic settings and not making any changes, just clicking OK. And now let me demonstrate what I said before, that if you make changes to the texture size, let's save it and apply. Okay, so now it's looking jaggy. And if you create a new graphics profile, let's name it IFR medium sunset, because this will help increase the frame rate during sunsets. Okay, and if you open the respective configuration file of the profile in the documents folder and in prepared v4 files, you can see that the translucent shadow texture size is still 512, although we have changed it to 128 in the main configuration file. So this is the problem that I addressed at the beginning of this video, but it's not a big deal as long as you can change the value directly in the configuration file. And if there's any of you who can program, well, maybe you can make a tool that will allow to change the texture size just with a button, pressing a button, and then the texture size will be changed. I have made a proposal in the forum of ActiveSky to implement an automatic change in texture size depending on the cloud cover. So who knows, maybe this will be implemented in the future. Okay, so I hope that from now on you will have happy flights and you will be able to enjoy beautiful and romantic sunsets during your flights and not be bothered any longer by a dip in the frame rate. Because remember, if you should encounter a situation as described here, just change the texture size, because when it's sunset, when the ground gets dark anyway, then the low texture size will not affect the visual quality significantly. Okay, have fun everyone, happy landings, and hopefully I will be back and you'll be back in the next video. Take care.